Hi, Mick McQuaid here, and as we begin week 9, I'd like to say a little bit more about SQL or SQL. What is it? Well, there is a good history on Wikipedia. I like Wikipedia a lot more than most instructors. I find that if you take it with a grain of salt, it's quite useful. And you will find if you look at the Wikipedia history that the original version was called SQL, short for Structured English Query Language. And it was developed at IBM at the same time as the relational database. But it became a standard outside IBM's control in the mid-'80s. And a standards committee published a new version at irregular intervals every few years since then. And every commercial relational database system implements it, but it doesn't fully adhere to the definition of relational. And it has sub-languages. So the data query language, the data definition language, the data control language, and the data manipulation language. And these languages are invisible to the average user except that they group SQL statements together under each of them. So SQL is declarative. I've said before that it tells what you want, not how to get it. But there are some procedural elements in it, so in some ways it does prescribe the how. Most of these procedural elements let you write functions in popular programming languages. So if you want to combine your SQL with whatever programming language you're familiar with, you can probably do that. Some are devoted to vendor lock-in. So every vendor of a commercial database wants you to continue to use their database, not somebody else's. So they try to lock you into theirs by offering extensions that make your code incompatible with the other databases. So, and this is a big issue in SQL. They don't fully adhere to the standard partly because the standard is unwieldy. It is a big standard, but partly to discourage switching. So the standard is not a complete standard. Popularity. There are many other languages and systems that try to follow the relational model as originally proposed by Edgar F. Codd, some more closely than SQL, such as, what is it called, System D or something like that. And there are also many non-relational or not only relational systems, which we'll talk about later. None of these are as popular as SQL or even close, so that's why we're emphasizing SQL in this class. And finally, I'd like to say a few problems with SQL, and the biggest problem is that it actually allows duplicate rows, which the relational model forbids. Therefore, you have to remember to declare a primary key or a unique constraint, or there can be problems in an application. Another problem is known as the impedance mismatch, which we'll discover in the lecture on ORMs. In brief, a declarative language isn't a good match for procedural language, and SQL is usually embedded, which is a declarative language, is usually embedded in a procedural language such as Java or JavaScript. Other more abstract problems are described in the Wikipedia article on SQL that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so that's all I want to say right now about SQL, but I have plenty more to say for this week. So there are 3 more lectures for this week. So I hope you'll tune into those as well. Thanks for watching.